What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to episode number 68 of the Hook It podcast. This episode is once again brought to you by our very good friends over at Sax Underwear. In particular, on this episode, I'm going to talk to you really quickly about the Legend Short. The Legend Short can be found in the sports section of the Sax catalogue, but if I'm being honest, I use it just for chilling and hanging out around the house. The best way to describe them is like a basketball short, super comfortable, but with a sport-specific liner. So they feature all of the cool benefits of Sax underwear, like they are moisture wicking, they have anti-odor technology. These have a stash for your phone as well, like a hidden stash, which is super cool. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. If your wife or girlfriend, in my case, likes to steal all your comfy stuff and wear them around the house, like your shorts, big hoodies, whatever, well, they're in for a shock, because apparently, although the ballpark pouch is super comfortable for us guys, it irritates the hell out of girls. So these shorts will stay your own, and I think that's probably why they call them a Legend Short, because they are legendary. It is a super cool product. Check them out, saxunderwear.com, or just go into your local bike shop, outdoor retailer, or skate store and ask for Sax products. Win-win. We are also supported by 35bikes.com. 35 Bikes is our in-house brand here at Hook It, and it's a humble Sheffield company. The ethos is simple with 35 Bikes. We make things that last, we cut out the bull, and we don't want you to feel like you've had your bank balance violated. So just head to 35bikes.com, check out the range of brake pads, which start at just £6.99. There's brake rotors. We do a new range of mud guards too, all made right here in sunny Sheffield. And we can also do custom products. So if you're interested in custom mudguards or custom stem caps, we can make that happen for you as well. Simply go to 35bikes.com, and if you enter the promo code podcast, you'll get 20% off your entire order, and you can also take advantage of free shipping globally. And that's it for all the business. Let's hand over to Ollie Wilkins, a little bit of main event, and get on with this episode.
Welcome to the Hook It podcast, endorsed by @ODub_23. Add me, tag me. Follow me. Please follow me.
Take another lap through the twisted life of a thrill-seek junkie, moto flunky. I wanna live on the edge of sane, where the heartbeat rides adrenaline. Close your eyes and count to 5. Hold your breath and feel so alive. Take me to the only place where the fire inside won't fade away. Can you feel your heartbeat racing when they turn out the lights? The entire world is watching. Are you ready to roll tonight?
What is up, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Hook It podcast. Today we're on episode number 68, and very shortly we are going to be joined by Jake Pantone of ENVE Composites. Before we crack on, I want to, as usual, say thank you for stopping by and checking out this episode. If you're new to the podcast, then welcome. If you've been around for a little while, then a huge thank you once again for your continued support. It means a lot. I wouldn't be here doing this if it weren't for you guys. This is the people's podcast, so thank you for engaging with the podcast, sharing it with your friends, all the good things that you guys do. It means a lot. So as usual, thank you for that. Each episode of the podcast, if you're new, we like to give something away. We always, at the minute, we give away a set of Sax underwear, and all you have to do to win some Sax underwear is go to iTunes and write a review. Make it as funny or as critical as you want. Try not to be rude, because that's just rude. But yeah, just write something out, let me know what you think to the podcast, and you could win yourself a set of Sax underwear. This episode, I am going to give some underwear away to M18_esque, and that is his iTunes handle. So if that's you, reach out through Instagram or Facebook or wherever, drop me an email, and I will get you some Sax underwear in the post directly, no questions asked, and yeah, that'll be a pleasure. Thank you for your glistening and glowing review. It means a lot. We've also, in the past week, wrapped up Project Change, which, those who don't know, was a charity that was set up just before Christmas to get the whole podcast community together and to raise some money for two very, very important charities. I am happy to tell you that although we didn't quite reach the financial goal, I always knew in the back of my head there was an amount of money we needed to get to be able to buy a bike for the disabled charity, which is an adapted electric trike. The thing is sick. I can't wait to show it you. And it's going to be really helpful to the charity too, most importantly. And because Marin stepped in and helped out by donating bikes, so if you don't know how that works, for every bike that we buy off Marin, they are donating a bike for free. And that means we can do that too. So we've killed two birds with one stone with the charity stuff. We're getting the disabled charity hooked up with a brand new electric e-bike trike. And we're also donating probably 4 bikes to the mental health charity. And they get people off hospital wards that are suffering with mental illness and get them out cycling. So it's two super important charities. And between the podcast community, we've managed to raise enough money to donate the bikes and make a real difference to these charities. So thank you to everyone who's helped do that. It gives me goosebumps talking about doing that, but I always knew that I wanted to use this platform for something good, and stoked to be able to do it. So thank you. So yeah, on today's podcast, we're joined by Jake Pantone. Jake is the VP of Marketing and Consumer Experience at ENVE. And on this episode, we chat about a whole host of things, from how he started with the company, product development, new products, athlete support. We cover pretty much everything. So sit back, grab a brew, make sure you're wearing socks, and enjoy this episode. And don't forget, let me know what you think at the end. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
All
for sure.
Rad. Okay. All right. Let's just rock and roll, man, like we were. It's always a little strange though. I always say this when we start these episodes. I'm like, right, we've already been talking for like however long. We've done like 10 takes of starting the podcast, and it's like, right, now we're going to start actually talking. It's weird. So yeah, anyway, welcome to the podcast, dude. Appreciate it. And big up Tim for linking this together, who it's just, you might be able to clear this up for me, because I did email him and I was like, so what's Tim's involvement in all this?
Oh, so Tim works for our PR company.
Ah, okay.
So he helps with PR on the mountain bike side for ENVE.
Right. Okay.
And
okay.
Yeah, he helps out with some, like, he shoots video for us if we all end up at the same event, and he's just general all around good guy and friend of the brand. So
yeah, for sure. No, he reached out, didn't he? Like what, 3 or 4 months ago now, probably, and was like, he just put Jake Pantone for the pod ? And then like a little bit of like, Jake could be great. What do you think? And I was like, yeah, cool. Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's rock and roll. So yeah,
right
finally get to lay this thing down, which I feel like I always say that when we record these. I'm like, finally. But yeah, these things take a little bit of time to schedule. Everyone's, my schedule at the minute's crazy. Usually January and February in the UK for the bike industry is pretty quiet, but it's actually been really good. The start of the year. Yeah, like we've had mild weather. We've not really had any snow yet. Usually once the snow comes, it's just like, you just almost flick a switch and you sat around sort of twiddling your thumbs doing jobs but don't really need to be done. But yeah, it's actually been good. Like, it's been a great start to the year. So my schedule's been hectic, and like I was saying before we started recording, scheduling podcasts kind of it's not the business. It's, you know what I mean? Like, it's more of a hobby. So I have to be a little bit cautious of not spending any time with any friends or family, just recording podcasts and working all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's been quite the opposite here. It's definitely winter in Utah.
Yeah, I bet. You got snow there too, right?
Yeah, this year's been really snowy, which is good if you're a skier. So
okay, which you are.
Yeah, which I am. I'm working.
All right, man. So usually when we kick these off too, it's nice to get like a little bit of backstory into yourself and how you got the job which you've got, which is, a really high position in quite a prominent mountain bike brand. So just tell me a little bit, dude, like, where did you grow up and all that sort of stuff? Have you always been into mountain biking? I'll let you just rip it and tell me a little bit about yourself. Like we're on a first date.
Sounds good. Exactly. Full speed date here. Do you want my name or anything? We got that all covered.
Yeah, do it, man. Give yourself an introduction. Why not? I didn't really do it, did I? I used to start these actually by like letting the other guests do the introduction, because I either always forget or I'd miss something like really prominent in the career out.
You want me to introduce you too? Because I could.
Maybe. Fire away.
Yeah, no. So Jake Pantone with ENVE Composites, and I currently fill the role of Vice President of Product and what we call Consumer Experience. It's a long title, but it kind of covers all the most important aspects of the brand, being, we're only as good as the product, and then making sure that everybody has a good experience with the product. So, yeah, a little bit about myself. I've been into cycling and mountain biking and road biking and cyclocross racing and all of that for quite a while now. I mean, I got into riding when I was a kid, like many of us, and just continued to look for ways to incorporate cycling into my life. And I definitely gravitated towards mountain biking living in Utah. It's great trails, great access to terrain right out the back door. We're 4 hours from Moab, 5 hours from southern Utah, like St. George, Virgin area. There's obviously great riding down there.
Yeah.
And so, I just, when I got into the sport, it was, 90s, early 90s. I was younger in the 90s, but obviously. Mountain biking wasn't quite what it is then as it is now, but I started racing in like the late 90s, cross country racing, and downhill was kind of coming on the scene. And my little brothers raced downhill. Actually, I never got into it because to me it looked like maintaining a helicopter. Like they'd go down one downhill run and then have to rebuild the whole bike.
That's about right. Yeah.
It's just, this doesn't really. I really like riding my bike more than I like working on it, and so. I really sort of stayed in the cross country scene for a while. I ended up doing road racing as well. Just at the time, there was this whole like epiphany that if you rode road bikes, you could be a faster mountain biker too. So did a fair amount of road racing, and but yeah, I've always considered myself a mountain biker at heart. But
right.
Truth be told, if I'm paying for an event these days, I'm racing gravel bikes.
Really?
So, seems like if I'm going to go and spend money on an event, I'm kind of looking for more of that full experience, kind of get out and see a lot of country. And so we've been doing some gravel racing, myself, and then some of my buddies that I've, ridden with for a long time. But really, I kind of like to break it up, and it's really seasonal here in Utah. Obviously, like we have 4 seasons, and it's definitely winter right now. And so if we want to ride bikes, you're generally going down south where it's a little warmer.
Okay.
So we usually, but up north here, it's like in the spring you ride road bikes while the trails are melting off. And then, early summer starts to, dry out the lower trails. So you can start riding lower trails. And then by the fall, all you're doing is riding a mountain bike, or at least that's all I'm doing. So
Cool.
Yeah, probably not too different. I mean, a little different from where you are, but yeah, you guys definitely have the seasons to ride and seasons to hibernate.
Yeah, dude, it feels like we have one season right now. It's like, it's just winter. That's just... Although, in fairness, we had a really, really, really good summer in the UK. It was beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, it's been really, really nice. But you know how it is, man. Us English guys, we like to moan about stuff. So as soon as it gets cold, we're like, oh, it's awful. It's been like this for ages, even though the reality is it's been like this for a month. So,
yeah.
But
yeah, it's a -1 Fahrenheit today here in Utah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Little chilly this morning.
Yeah, I bet.
So, yeah, I haven't been on a bike for a little bit, but actually headed out to California this week to go ride some road bikes.
Oh, cool.
Down the coast, so should be a good week down there.
Yeah, it's been raining there though too recently.
Yeah. All that snow that comes to Utah starts out as rain in California, so just trading one for the other. But yeah, as far as I think you asked me, we were talking about like how did I get started at ENVE, and so yeah, I love cycling, and like a lot of people, that are passionate about the sport, I was going to the university, and I was pursuing a business degree, and I was kind of toying with an accounting degree, and then I thought I'd maybe do finance, and then I started taking marketing classes, and I was like, these marketing and entrepreneurship classes are way more fun and entertaining than like the numbers classes. And I liked all of it, but I ended up ultimately doing just an undergrad in marketing. And so I did the business degree. At the time I was in school, I was I helped 2 friends open bike shops. So One of our first bike shops we opened was a complete and utter failure.
Right. Okay.
There's something about like buying everything on credit and never having anything in inventory and telling people, yeah, we can order that.
When you can't.
Never really allowed us to make too much ground. And luckily it was, like I said, I was just helping a buddy open that shop. And so, that was kind of like a 1-year project. And then the same buddy met some different guys who had a little more financial means to do a proper investment in a great retail location. And so we opened a shop that's actually only about 30 minutes south of where we're at here at ENVE, which is now one of the largest shops sort of in northern Utah. And and so I helped kind of start that shop, manage that shop, and my buddy's the owner of that shop. And so working there, we met a lot of people in the area, and through that process, we met one of the original founders of ENVE. At the time, it was called Edge. And then actually the investors who helped finance this bike shop project are also the main guys who financed Edge Composites, which is what we were called when we first started. And
right.
those guys were Brett and Taylor Satterthwaite.
Okay.
And so those guys still live here locally. In fact, one of them's in the office next door to me where I'm talking, doing some projects. He's an engineer, so he's still actively involved, even though he technically doesn't own the brand anymore. But yeah, he's still involved and is one of the original founders. And so it's great to have him here still. But so working at the shop, I met these guys. I was working on their bikes. I was selling product not selling product to them. They own the shop, so they just take whatever they wanted. But that was really their dream, right? They were spending so much money in all the other bike shops that they're like, we should really just open our own shop.
Yeah.
Get a tax discount. So that's kind of what they did. So as time went on, these guys met another of the original founders of ENVE, Jason Shears, and they, all came together and said, hey, I think Jason had the idea that we can make better carbon wheels, and this is how we can do it. Not only can we make carbon wheels, we can manufacture other carbon components as well. And so they started this business, which was called Edge Products at the time, and wheels were not our first product. We actually started making things. We did some contract manufacturing for other brands, so we were making ice axe handles for Black Diamond, kayak paddles for a company called H2O Paddles, I believe is what they were called. We had some projects making some, I don't know if they ever came to market. We were doing like some prototype sunglass frames for some sunglass brands. We did snowboard bindings for Burton for a minute. Okay. And so we were doing a lot of contract manufacturing to generate revenue to fund wheel development, because wheels are not a cheap proposition from a manufacturing standpoint. The molds or the tooling are quite expensive, and you need a lot of them. And so we really had to generate forms of revenue to finance that project. So the first cycling components we made were actually forks and tubing. So we've always been fairly involved in the custom frame builder market. So we really early on, and we still do believe, that those custom frame builders are somewhat, they're like the heart and the soul. They're like the artisan. They're the artisan side of the industry. They're the ones kind of like pushing creativity, or at least really expressing themselves, through the bike frames they produce. And so we really felt like we were kindred spirits with that, community of builders. Because at the time we were really just a small one-off custom carbon shop. Really, we had ambitions and goals to obviously manufacture on a larger scale, but ultimately we were making, custom projects for, small one-off kind of custom projects. And it really was something at the time that was very refreshing to the custom builders, because at the time when everybody else was sort of making a mass exodus away from doing forks, like aftermarket road forks, we were coming in and saying, we can make a carbon road fork, and we're not only going to do it, but we're going to do it better, and we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to do it. So it was a road fork that was molded from the top of the steer tube to the bottom of the dropouts all in one piece, which was a unique construction method for the time. So we sort of got our start in composites that way. And I guess in that whole process is at some point they came to me when I was working at the shop and said, hey, would you like to come work over at Edge? We need we were going to start making wheels. You know how to build wheels. We could use a wheel builder. So that was sort of my segue into the brand.
Okay.
Was just from a wheel building standpoint. And my first months at Edge Composites were spent making parts for the small custom frame builder. So I was actually making chain stays and seat stays primarily for Parley. And Jason thought it was really important that I get experience with the material itself and understanding how we make carbon fiber parts. And so that was really good, sort of quick and dirty education for me in terms of how carbon fiber is manufactured. And so I kind of started there, and then and definitely worked more in the back and helping, make parts and everything involved on the manufacturing side. Sort of early on, it was very rudimentary considering where we're at today. But I was spending most of my time in the back in the shop making parts in the first days until we eventually evolved into a position where we had to develop a website, and we had to start taking calls and trying to sell the product and present the brand to people. And so I think I started in early 2007, maybe end of 2006, something along those lines.
Okay.
And then the first year we presented a bike product, or like a wheel product, is I think we went to Interbike in 2008 and shared a very small corner of a booth with Parley Cycles.
Okay.
And so
wow,
that was kind of where I think where I started to make the transition from like guy making carbon parts and back and lacing up wheels to more on the sales and marketing side of things for the brand.
Yeah. So what employee number were you then? You must have been one of the super early guys.
Yeah. I want to say I'm like seven or nine, somewhere in 7, 8, or 9.
Really? Crazy. And it sounds like there was always a goal. Like, it sounds like you were, you joined the company. It sounds like you were always going to sort of stay there because you started at the ground up. And it sounds like, Jason and the guys knew at some point you were going to be higher up. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I mean, it does, but I
or
don't
maybe
know
there wasn't a job like in sales and marketing yet anyway, so you had to start like right at the bottom. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if that's really the case. I mean, I think I worked hard, and I definitely have an affinity towards sort of like product design and development. Like I'm not an engineer, but my dad is, and my uncles are, and I've always grown up around mechanical things, and I've always liked that. And so at least I like to think that I'm an analytical thinker. And so I think having race bikes and just having a work ethic, I think was a huge benefit. So, I think I just worked hard, and, the owners and the founders were open-minded and kind enough to give me a lot of opportunities and to see potential where potential existed. And, I'm actually constantly humbled by the position and the duties that I hold here today, because the reality is like, as successful as the brand has been, it didn't come without a cost. And, those early years were super hard, and the founders and the Satterthwaites, and then their other partners, the Lehmans and Jason, like everybody sacrificed a lot to make sure that the brand got through some hard times, there was definitely a lot of sacrifice. And so there were definitely times on my end where it was very questionable whether or not the brand would still exist in, 6 months or 3 months or even the next week, based on like, was there going to be an order come in? Was somebody going to pay their bill? All sorts of things like that. So
it's not all sunshine and rainbows, that's for sure. And been an owner of the company, I can feel that for sure. We're in our 4th year, and it's still that everyday grind, the hustle. And you'd like to think that you're working so that in another 5 or 6 years you can look back and go, yeah, those times were important because we really like grit our teeth and got through it.
Yep. And I think there's sort of that adage that like the only real failure is quitting.
Dude, definitely. Especially if you're a proud person too, and it's just not even an option, right? Like it's not even there. It's just head down, keep going.
Yeah, I think with like in a brand and like that entrepreneurial spirit, a lot of it's just perseverance. Like knowing there's gonna be a hard time, working your ass off to make sure that you can get through it, and doing your best to keep going. And I think that's really a lot of the reasons why ENVE has been as successful as they are, because we've always sort of taking others' doubts to fuel the fire, so to speak. Like when people told us we couldn't or we wouldn't last, or if we didn't go to Asia to manufacture rims, like we would fail, we sort of felt like that was just a challenge.
Yeah. It's the best way, man. Embrace it and knuckle down, get on with it, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
exactly.
So tell me then a little bit more about what your job is now, because like you said, it's quite a long title that you hold there at ENVE. So what's a day look like for you?
Oh man. Well, there's a fair amount of meetings, but most of those meetings are tied. So there's a product aspect of it, and then there's the brand and marketing side of things. And I'm, currently, while we're obviously a much bigger brand than we were when we started over 10 years ago, but we're still a relatively small brand, and we have constraints. So we don't have, a huge marketing department. Our marketing team consists of about 10 guys and gals, and we pretty shoestring in terms of how we run that side of the business. But so I have product responsibilities, and then have marketing and brand responsibilities. And so on the product side, I am looking at the market, trying to determine, what directions we want to go, what are the trends, what things are changing, what's going to stay the same, what is it that our customers are asking for, what's the feedback coming in. So I work with our customer service and commercial teams to sort of understand how products being received into the market. And so there's that aspect where we're just trying to make sure that the product we're delivering is meeting the expectations of the people buying it.
Okay.
And then there's also, an element of the new product that's in the pipeline. So making sure that the engineers have what we call the must-have features, and making sure that those sort of demands are met in terms of the product design and development side of things. And that's a fun part of the job for sure, because I get to do a lot of product testing. And so that's always sort of the thing people want to dream of doing. And it's definitely a dream job that way, as we get to go ride bikes and test new product, or ride bikes in the name of testing product. But
yeah.
It's a super important part of the job, because that's where a lot of inspiration takes place. And then on the marketing side, I've been an integral part of building this brand, and it's just making sure that it's really connecting the dots between new product development and marketing initiatives and the customer service team. So that's kind of what that trifecta of consumer experience involves, is just making sure that the messaging going out to the market is on brand, the product is on brand, and then the feedback from the market is what we want, that the response to our messaging is being received correctly. And it's a challenge, man. There's like a lot of mixed messages in the market especially around mountain bike products. And, so we can talk more about that. But
yeah, for sure. So what are some of the sort of tools that you use to track people's response to, say, a new product or something like that? Like, is it email feedback, speaking to shops? Like, what do you do to do that?
We have a range of tools, and so we try to collect that information from any medium we can. So obviously people like to email and call us, so we have people calling in. Oftentimes when people are happy, they're generally not calling us and telling us. So we get a pretty direct line if there's something that's like causing somebody trouble, like, road tubeless is a fairly new thing to the market. So we fill a fair amount of calls about people asking what's the best tire and how do we set up our tubeless wheels and this, that, and the other. So, the direct line to our customer service team is very important, as is the feedback in the email forums we get. We read comments on the social media channels, and
wow.
Painful it is, but we do track and follow that. And, you have to put a filter on, obviously, to sort of pull out what is meaningful and valuable as far as the information goes. But there's that. And then really, I think it's really important. And one of the things that's really made ENVE successful as a brand is the fact that we ride our bikes. So we go to events, like we have people in the building that are passionate about nearly every discipline in cycling. We've had former World Cup downhillers work here. We've had, cross country racers, road racers. I mean, anything you can do on a bike, there's somebody here in the building that's pretty passionate about it. And so we go to events, and really at those events, we learn a lot too. Walking around, looking at the bikes people are riding, talking to consumers. You can glean a lot of information off of just being in those
like out in the field almost as well, right? Like, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So does that mean for you going to World Cup downhill, that sort of thing, speaking to teams, or do you mainly do that via email or Skype calls or whatever it might be?
No, I mean, we, again, like resources depending, we like to get out to usually we go to several World Cups a year, but that's one of the challenges for ENVE as a brand is we're involved in all disciplines of cycling. So, it's not where some brands have the ability or set up just where they're focused on just sort of one aspect of the sport. We're focusing on everything from we have road riding all the way to downhill racing. And so we go to a couple, we basically have teams that are dedicated to each sort of discipline. So we have an engineer, there's basically an engineer, 2 engineers that are basically assigned to World Cup downhill team. And we have another engineer assigned to the EWS team, another engineer assigned to our cross country World Cup team. And so, like this year with Commensal being our new World Cup downhill team, we already sent our sponsorship guy in marketing as well as the engineer over to the team camp. So they've already spent a week and a half there doing test riding and testing product. And then, we have, it all depends like on how well things are going or not, right? If like things are going really well, products meeting every expectation, then we sort of are less involved on a weekly or daily basis. But if there's a need, then we hurry and deploy the resources necessary to make sure that everything's running smoothly. So long answer to a short question, but we're going to World Cups and we're going to the Tour de France and we're going to Dirty Cons and like all these races and disciplines to both be there to have FaceTime with our athletes as well as to learn and see how the product is performing and what can maybe be improved in the future. So
okay, well, I know if we to talk about the marketing side of it a little bit, it's quite a broad subject, marketing, and I've certainly never studied it or anything like that, although over the years I've become quite interested in marketing. And obviously, again, being an owner of a distribution company, you're always trying to look at ways to market certain products, certain brands, etc. So I was curious what you see happening, within the market now, where you're starting to focus a lot of your marketing energy. Is it for you? Is it in downhill? Is it, road cycling? You said gravel bikes. Where do you see the major market trends?
Sure. So there's so for ENVE, we look at it like this. We're designing and developing product for the top echelons of each discipline, but we're selling the product to the masses, so to speak. I'm selling the product to the guys like you and me, basically, who are passionate about the sport. Sort of like mountain biking is our primary pastime. Like if we have disposable income, it's going towards mountain biking, whether it be travel or equipment. But that's where the resources are deployed. And so for us, like if you look at our M series line, we have, M5, M6, M7, M9. The M9 is the World Cup downhill wheel. We sell very few M9 wheel sets, but it's really important that wheel set perform because it's the most visible of the wheel sets. So even though it's what we sell the least of, it's what's the most visible on the world stage of mountain biking because it's what's raced by the World Cup downhill team, which everyone from cross country racers to, casual, Red Bull watchers, end up watching a downhill race, right? And so it's very important that, we spend a lot of money and time promoting and marketing that product because it's the most extreme discipline that we support in the sport. And so there's sort of this trickle down effect from a marketing and brand standpoint where people connect the dots. Like if it's good enough for, the Steve Pete and for Amaury Piron and any of these other professional World Cup downhill racers, it's certainly good enough for me to go ride on the trail on the weekend. And so, but marketing's it's all angles, right? It's making
sure crazy. It's so tough.
We have athletes. The way we look at it is our professional teams, their primary responsibility is about product validation and testing. Like all the publicity they get is really great, but for us, the number one priority with a professional team is that they give us product feedback that helps us elevate the quality and the performance of our products. So
Right.
That's number one priority. And, that's really what's allowed us to get to where we're at in downhill today is still what would be the most successful carbon downhill wheel in downhill discipline, because we started 9 years ago with Syndicate, and from Syndicate we went to Intense, and now from Intense we've gone to Common Sol.
Yeah.
But each year we've made substantial improvements in the product, to where honestly today, like to put it in perspective, our World Cup cross country rim that we sell today is stronger than the original downhill rim.
Really? Right.
In terms of its ability to manage impact. That's the leap that we've made in 10 years in terms of carbon rim construction and durability. Yeah. So there's that aspect. And then obviously we have our social channels. We have our ambassadors out in the field. We do very little marketing, and more today we see, by marketing I mean advertising. We do very little like advertising in print advertising or even digital advertising. We've moved more to more affiliate and ambassador type spend, and then performance marketing is becoming big, because what we're seeing more and more in the big trend is obviously consumers want to have a relationship with the brand. So we look at the market and sort of divide consumers into two categories, and there's the consumer that's the do-it-yourself kind of guy, and obviously YouTube is that place, right? You can get on YouTube and DIY about anything you want to.
Yeah.
And then that consumer in mountain biking specifically are often guys like myself or you or whoever that maybe had a lot of time working in a bike shop. Now they have a profession and they still know how to work on their bike. They like to work on their bike. They want to do it themselves rather than pay somebody to do it for them. And, we need to provide them the information, the things they need, tools they need to do that properly. And the other side of it for us is the do-it-for-me consumer, which is what you need at the retail level. So we kind of look at our marketing and our messaging communications down that party line of there's the information for the DIY guy, and here's the information and the support for the do-it-for-me guy, and which is obviously our network of distributors and dealers around the world. So.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's always interesting though to speak to guys like yourself who are working in like the marketing field and just sort of see what you make of it, because even again for us as a smaller company, you just never know how to do it, and things like influencers and stuff are becoming so much more prolific. we got an intruder. Influencers and stuff are becoming so much more of a thing, whereas I think it was sort of frowned upon for a little while. Just having ththese guys that have got a big social media presence, it can help put your brand in front of so many eyes, often quite cheaply as well. Let's be honest. Do you know what I mean? You get a lot of bang for your buck as long as you're working with the right people that do it in a good manner. But it's just like I say, it's always interesting just to hear your take on it. And with the digital space now, and I didn't know if you did like quite a lot of Facebook marketing or video edits and stuff like that. I know, like you said, you were involved in the Syndicate, so you did all of the This Is Petey videos and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that sort of space is really interesting to me, and how people are using it. Whether you've got like the longer video edits, which are cool, like the films, like your Gamble and Death Grip and stuff like that, and then you have the opposite side of that, which is your 1 minute Insta bangers, which I don't feel necessarily is ENVE's market. Do you know what I mean? It's not really the look of the business. It's more the high end, clean cut, beautifully made sort of film stuff. Yeah,
that's hard. That's the truth be told, like the number one hire we did this year was a videographer. So like the reason we've in the past we've always outsourced those videos, and we sort of set a precedent with one of our early projects with the M series where it was a fairly high budget project for us, and so we over the years we've sort of just kind of had one or two marquee video projects a year. And they've all been fairly high production value. And what we've realized is those are great, but it's really hard to pull the ROI out of those. Yeah. Considering that for exponentially less money, you can get 80% of the production quality of the video or whatever. And so we're definitely video is a medium that is gaining popularity, and so it's definitely an area where we're investing from a marketing standpoint, because people, there's some people like to read long form stuff, and there's people like to watch video, and some people like long videos, some people like short, but it's really, for us, the need for video is really more on the education and those like quick brand, like the stories that tell, those videos that tell the story of the brand and can do it quickly and in small doses are really what people are needing these days.
Okay.
And we do a fair amount of performance marketing as well, meaning like we're spending money on Facebook, but it's more on Facebook or Google ads, and those are very specific objectives, usually tied to a new product launch. So if we really want to create awareness around this new product that's been launched, then we'll use that. And then event awareness, like if we're doing events or rides, that's a great medium for that. If we're going to a specific area, so say we're going to Sea Otter and we're going to do, well, I know at Sea Otter we have a couple athlete rides in place that we're going to be doing, and we'll definitely be marketing specifically to people that are at Sea Otter and in the region. So it's a busy thing, marketing.
It is. It's such a broad term, and it's just, for me, it's just hella confusing. And I think, like you said, you did a lot of it at college, did you say, university, something like that? So all that stuff now is just like pretty much forget about it, right? Like, it's totally different. It's just, it's only something that
I'm a lot younger than I am to figure it all out.
You mentioned as well, the Syndicate came on board, and that'll be like, what, 2010? Syndicate?
Yep, 2010.
Time flies. Wow. What did that do for the brand? I mean, that's when I personally started seeing ENVE a lot more. Again, I've got ties with Joe and the Syndicate, but that's when I really started to see it.
Yeah, the partnership with Syndicate was fortuitous at a minimum. It was kind of a cool story how it all started off. I mean, effectively, I think, and again, I wasn't there, so this specific exact details of the whole story might not be totally correct, but basically, Jason Shears, one of the founders, was on an airplane home from Asia, and I believe he was either sitting next to Joe Graney or Rob Roskop on the plane,
right?
Or they had met over there, and basically there was this conversation that started along the lines of like, who are you? What do you do? And they, got to talking, and Jason was like, "Oh, we make carbon fiber wheels, and we make them for mountain bikes." And Joe Graney was like, "That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard." But he's like, "I want to try a pair." So, Jason's like, "Oh, they're awesome. You got to try a pair." So whatever they sent. So we sent Joe Graney a pair of wheels, I believe. And then he loved them. And it sort of just kicked off this chain of events that eventually sort of led down the road to us being a sponsor of the Syndicate. And again, like the exact details of that might be not quite right because I wasn't there personally. Okay. But it either started, I know the Joe Graney piece of the story was accurate where, he, like everybody's, when we were early days, the first thing was like, "You guys are making carbon wheels. That's the dumbest idea ever." And then the next breath was, "I'd like to try it."
Yeah.
These promises were seemed so outlandish, but people were really like interested in it. And, but Syndicate was just a rad project. It was an excellent collaboration because we, it was wheels, it was handlebars. Santa Cruz was really new to the carbon fiber thing. Like they hadn't figured out how to make a rear triangle yet for the V10.
Okay.
And so we actually, prototyped the original V10 swing arm. So we actually made the first carbon swing arms that were raced in World Cup were actually made and manufactured here at ENVE.
Oh, right. Wow.
They had on the inside of the chainstays, they said ENVE on them. And then once that design and everything was sort of finalized, we passed that on to Santa Cruz because we weren't wanting to be in the business of contract manufacturing of V10 swing arms. And given that those frames were being made overseas, it made sense to like pass the design and everything off to Santa Cruz to have the frames all assembled in the same place. But it was a great collaboration that way of really really ENVE and Santa Cruz introduced the full carbon bike to downhill racing in a format that was like legitimately raceable and not just like disposable parts after one run type of deal.
Yeah.
And that first year, it was like the first year with Syndicate, we broke a lot of rims by what we felt was, we broke more rims than we had sort of hoped or expected. But the reality is we consumed half of the number of aluminum rims from the previous season. So,
okay,
say the number was 100 the first season, or the previous season, we only went through like 50 carbon rims the first year we did carbon. And then every year beyond that was less and less and less as we improved the design of the wheels. And so from that partnership with Syndicate, we were also able to generate and garner an OEM relationship with Santa Cruz. And obviously Santa Cruz is a brand that has massive reach and exposure and is well respected. And that was good for ENVE as a brand as well. So.
Yeah. So you sort of just vibed off each other, and the brands, I mean, you could argue that Santa Cruz was already on a bit of a pedestal, but it definitely elevated your brand, with it.
Yeah. And I think, for sure. And I think we, on the World Cup side of things, it was very mutually beneficial relationship. We helped them introduce the full carbon V10 frame. We, had 2 world championships, some World Cup overalls, and it was really just a successful run in terms of on the racing side of things that, one brand without the other would have been a hard sell. But it's, and as the brands have evolved, Santa Cruz has done what they've needed to do for their business and introduced their own line of carbon wheels. And we've done what we've needed to do for the business as well. And so, that relationship is still good on a personal standpoint. Yeah. And, it was an excellent partnership and an excellent model sort of for like how 2 brands can collaborate and, push the envelope.
Yeah. Is it a little bit strange though that they went off and started making carbon wheels, or not? Or is that always sort of the plan,
Yes and no. The reality is you have the really big brands out there, the giants, the Specialized, the Treks of the world. And, their product managers have price points and margins they're trying to hit. And Santa Cruz is owned by Pon.
Yeah.
And Pon has very aggressive goals for growth. And, we're a relatively small U.S. manufacturer, and our wheels cost lots more money to make than some of the other wheels out there. And so, for them, it was really a business decision that we saw coming for some time. It wasn't like it was just sprung upon us that all of a sudden Santa Cruz was making their own wheels. We knew it was coming for quite a while before it materialized. And no hard feelings.
I think that's the perfect segue too. Perfect segue into talking a little bit more about some product. And I'm not hugely technical when it comes to this sort of stuff, so you may have to bear with me. You're going to have to take the lead a little bit on this. I mean, one thing that when you mention ENVE to people, and we've done it on the the social media up until you coming on the podcast, one of the main questions you get is, dude, I'm so sorry because you're going to hear this almost every single day of your life, but why are they so expensive? You just alluded to the fact that they are, they're made in the USA, which is really cool. You've kept everything in-house in one new facility. Is that correct too? So everything is done right there. So yes. A bit of an open-ended question, but I wanted you to just sort of attest a little bit to why are they so expensive?
Sure.
I'm sure you have this rehearsed, right? Like
you would think so, but it's really not a simple answer, like because it's made in the USA or it's the best. But we are a U.S. manufacturer, which is not cool because it's made in the USA. It's cool because of the ability it allows us to be dynamic with the shifts in the market. So it's U.S. made is awesome for ENVE because, for example, the day that 26-inch wheels died, we weren't sitting with a container full of 26-inch wheels on the ocean that were then going to be imported into the North American market. And then you have to sit there and go like, are we going to discount these? Are we going to chop them up? Are we just going to eat the inventory? So there's a level of dynamicism that you get with owning the full process inside the 4 walls of your organization. And so the cool thing at ENVE is that we have engineers, the product teams, the marketing teams, the sales team, HR, accounting, everybody's under one roof. If customer service takes a call from a customer and the customer's like, hey, I had this happen to a rim, we can immediately take the serial number, walk it to the data team, have them run the numbers and get the full download of the rim, what it is, et cetera, make sure that all the weights and everything from the manufacturing side of things were correct. And, you know, we could literally like run a similar test in the test lab same day and see if there's something that is a bigger deal, and then, you know, whatever, it just allows us to be really dynamic and responsive to the market and the needs of a consumer. So you ask, like, why is that? The question though is, why does ENVE cost what it does? Well, I think it's coming to ENVE and seeing the process seeing what goes into making a wheel that really helps understand what the costs are, because ENVE is we're not just a brand, we're not just a marketing brand. Like, people certainly accuse us of marketing, and we do a good job of, and we invest in our brand, we invest in having it look and feel high touch and high end. But we're not just a brand sourcing product from another manufacturer. And I think that's the key imperative. Like, if you come to ENVE, you'll see that we have a full test lab. And in that test lab, there's a lot of equipment that has to be machined, produced, fabricated. Obviously all the data analytics and all the things that go into like good test product. And we build and develop all that stuff here in-house. It's not a third-party provider. It's stuff we develop and build in-house. So if you're going through the process of developing a wheel, it's, you know, first it's conceptualized by the engineers and the product team, and we come up with the parameters, and then that design, if you're not a manufacturer, you send that design packet off to Asia or wherever, wherever it's being manufactured, overseas or offshore, whatever. And then 6 weeks later, you get a prototype back. And that prototype generally sort of checks off all the boxes, and you can go and test it on your own if you have a lab, or send it out to a third party for another opinion, or you can test ride it, or all of the above. And then you can go back to the manufacturer and say, okay, we'd like to make this change. And you generally get to do that 2 or 3 times. Because in that process, doing like 3 iterations is generally going to be 6 weeks between iteration. And so you're stretching out that development timeline quite long, which again is why U.S. manufacturing for ENVE is really important, because we cut that time to market down to like a third of what it has to be.
Right.
See, but again, for us, we come up with a project, and it goes down to the R&D, it goes through our machine shop, and it's all done here in-house. So like the investment in manufacturing is quite large. Like, we bear the burden of the cost of all the development, which ultimately leads to a higher price product in the aftermarket, based on the fact that we're fully manufactured, making the best quality product we can. And the reason it is the best is because we're allowed to do a lot more iterations and prototypes, is I guess really what I'm getting down to. So we're one brand can make like 3 iterations potentially of a wheel. We're doing dozens of iterations. And we've been doing that for a long time. And it's not our goal to be the most expensive brand. We never set out to be a super high. I mean, we set out to be a high touch brand, but never like tried specifically to price ourselves out of the market. It's really the price of the product has really been based on the fact of how much it costs us to develop product and to do the R&D and to run the prototypes. I mean, a good example is our last M series launch, the lead up in designing and developing that product line. We had to run, I mean, there's 4 base family. It's a family of 4 base models. So you have M5, which is cross country, M6, which is trail, M7 is more your enduro kind of park product, and then M9 is downhill.
What happened to M8? Well. Where did M8 go?
The M8 just got skipped because it was, no good.
Okay.
And the way those names originally started was like this conceptual idea of like descend to climb ratios. So the M5 was actually the M50-50, and then it was 60-40, 70-30. So these were descend to climb preference. And then 90-10 was like, this is your downhill wheel that occasionally you might have to pedal across traverse a hill or slightly uphill, but downhill product. But each of those wheels then has a 27.5 inch and a 29-inch model. And then in our M6 series, you have 4 different widths now, with a 30, a 35, a 40, and an 85, which is the fat bike wheel. That one just launched. But each of those wheels has about 100 prototype rims that are made before it ever sees the market.
Wow.
So that's everything from product that is just scrap. So like you put it in a mold and something happens and it doesn't work out. So that just gets chopped up and sent to recycling. Then you have product that goes to the test slab. So depending on how close you are on the first try or not, determines how many different iterations there has to be. And so that adds up. And then once you finally have an iteration or two, generally we narrow it down to like 2 or 3 different rim laminates, so carbon constructions. We narrow that down to 2 or 3, and then we go test ride those. And then, so once we've internally test ridden and picked sort of a favorite, and that internal test riding can also include some athletes, depending on how they are with product feedback. So then we'll narrow it down to that, and then we make more rims that then get sent out to beta testers, which are there's a select group of consumers we use for testing, as well as athletes and ambassadors. And by the time you get to the end of that, you're often looking at 50 to 60 wheel sets, which is 100 to 120 rims, and we do that for basically 11 different iterations of wheel.
Right. So you wouldn't just scale it up. You won't just scale up the size. You do it again. You won't just go, the 20, the 650B one's all right. 29 will be fine. You do it all again.
You certainly try to scale as much as possible, but the reality is like a 27.5 inch wheel, it manages impact and forces very differently than a 29 inch wheel because of the increased diameter. So you can scale the design to a certain extent, and it definitely provides a baseline, but then it's like these fine tweaks. And that's really what makes ENVE different, is our pursuit of like trying to find that optimal balance that we're seeking in a product. So if we say the M7 wheel has a very specific amount of things we're trying to accomplish with it, and we're trying to find that best balance of like getting the weight to a good point, getting durability, and in the case of our latest was also pinch flat resistance. Like we want wheels that don't flat tires. Short of like telling everybody exactly what like our costing structure is, it's the reality that we go to efforts above and beyond what any other manufacturer either A, can, or B, willing to do to produce the best product possible. And we've been doing that for 10 years now. And we're also looking at ways to streamline efficiencies in manufacturing so that we can bring our pricing down. I mean, the reality is our pricing hasn't gone up in 10 years.
Is that right? Okay. Yeah. I didn't know it. Yeah. I didn't really think about that, but
yeah, the pricing we charge today is effectively the same pricing we charged in 2009, 10.
Right.
And when you look at everything else in the bike industry, the price of bikes, the price of a lot of other things, a lot of those prices have just continued to climb. And I think we've kind of hit that peak where it seems like bike prices and everything are starting to kind of roll over, and maybe that's just a result of more consumer direct sales and sort of cutting out the margin to the middleman, so to speak. But
that's a whole nother world, a whole nother topic.
That's a whole other discussion. But one area that you'll see from ENVE in the future is like we make the rim, right, but we don't make hubs. We haven't made hubs in the past until recently. We've spent the last 3.5 years working on a hub project that we just barely launched on the roadside. So we just launched our own aluminum road hubs as well as a carbon road hub.
Wow.
And again, those hubs had very specific design parameters to be competitive as like standalone aftermarket hubs against the best hubs out there. But in the past, we've been buying hubs from basically competing manufacturers, and those hubs have import duties and long lead times. And so we carry a lot of cost of inventory also by doing that. So with the launch of our recent road hub, we've actually been able to lower our pricing of an ENVE wheel set by just over 10%.
Right.
Which when you're talking about a $2,800,
it's a good chunk of change, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going from $2,800 down to $2,500, which again starts to put it much more I mean, it's still going to be a wheel set at a premium to many of the other wheel sets out there, but it puts it more in the ballpark. It's not like a huge gap. It's just, it's clearly positioned in the premium location where it belongs. But it's a long answer, but ultimately I think, you know, it's great if anybody's ever in the area, like, to come see what we do at ENVE. There's quite a few different projects or videos that have been posted online about like ENVE manufacturing, and people have come to the factory and taken tours, but you kind of have to see it to understand it. And then, you know, we like to think that, you know, once somebody's ridden the product, oftentimes that whole question about like, is it worth it or not, kind of goes away, because they realize that there is a difference. And admittedly, they're more subtle and small every day.
Yeah.
As we,
yeah.
as manufacturers have had more time to learn and catch up, and honestly, like, take our rims, chop them up, burn them up, and figure out how they can replicate what we're doing. But again, we're already working on the next thing, right? We're always forcing and like challenging ourselves to stay ahead of the curve and understand what's next. And like right now, we have a product with like our M7 and M9 wheels, like nobody really in terms of its ability to manage impact and pinch flat performance. And so we're lucky with this last iteration of M series that we do have like a true performance advantage that, in our opinion, really does justify the price, because you're not going to be burning through tires and like you would in the past. So I mean, that's money in the pocket.
For sure. No, that's true. Yeah, I guess that's an added value too, if you're going to be saving money on tires and tubes, or, you know. So you are looking then at market dynamics where you have other people entering the market, and you realize that maybe you do have to be that little bit more competitive as things have evolved. You know, you've had whatever brand, we don't have to really mention them, but like, you know, the Santa Cruz rim, for example, We Are One, blah, 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 blah. Over here in the UK, 6 Elements, quite a big one as well. A lot of people are using those. And I haven't really looked at the cost differences, but it's obvious that ENVE is at the higher end of the market. So so you're saying then to be more competitive, you're looking at doing your own hubs and just trying to reduce those costs a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few ways. Like, there's things that are more fixed costs, like our manufacturing cost, the cost of labor.
Yeah.
You know, our investment in U.S. manufacturing. We are, you know, we're looking ways to streamline and make that more efficient as possible. When we look at sort of like what's the low hanging fruit, what are our biggest opportunities, like, you know, we pay a premium to import hubs from Europe or wherever, or from Asia specifically. If we import a hub, like a DT Swiss hub from Asia, there's duties on that that then get, you know, there's just major costs associated with like doing business with a competitor.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That makes sense, dude. Yeah, definitely. And again,
there's opportunities there to, we're always looking for ways to add more value to the product and understand intimately that the market is only getting more competitive. So the levers we can pull are efficiencies from a supply chain and manufacturing standpoint, and then of course adding technologies, features, benefits that provide a value that you can't get elsewhere. And so, yeah.
Awesome. I mean, one of the major things as well when you look online is, you know, the first iterations of the rim were quite stiff, maybe. So how have you gone about reverse engineering all that sort of stuff, and as well, like moving forward into the new M series, which is gonna almost eliminate pinch flats, which is crazy.
I love these questions.
Really?
This is the stiffness thing is one of my favorites, because I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like ENVE, ENVE really established carbon as a viable aftermarket, everyday rideable material for mountain biking. And in the early days, you were just trying to make a carbon rim that was durable. Okay, so the first generation of mountain wheels was all about honestly, so very first generation, we just were trying to figure out how to make a carbon rim both durable and tubeless. So tubeless dimensions were a real challenge in early days. Like, how do we get the tooling and the molds precise enough, and how do we get the rim that comes out of the mold to be precise enough to be tubeless? So that was sort of like Gen 1 mountain wheel. And then we introduced the M series. We introduced M series in 2014, the first M series rims. And those were, okay, we're going to improve tubeless performance, and we're going to make a rim that's exponentially more durable. So those were the first carbon rims that were widely available that had a hookless bead on them. Right. So fully hookless, and they were a whole step above in durability compared to the first generation mountain wheels. So we improved durability, we improved tubeless performance, and as a result, we in the effort to make really strong rims, we made really stiff rims.
Okay.
And the other piece of the puzzle was back then we didn't have boost, so we were dealing with fairly compromised hub geometry. In fact, we were still doing a fair amount of mountain bike wheels on 135 spacing.
Okay.
And so you're doing a 29-inch rim on 135 millimeter spacing. We were relying on the rim disproportionately to provide stiffness to the wheel build as compared to today. So as times evolve, we now have boost, and boost has favorable bracing angles. And so now less stiffness in the wheel is dependent upon the rim itself, and it's achieved by the bracing angles and the geometry of the hub. So evolution of the whole wheel design itself has allowed us to change the way we approach the rim design. So that first generation M series, yeah, it was stiff as hell, but it was stiff as hell because it served a purpose. It was stiff because we were trying to make stronger rims that were compensating for flawed hub geometries. And so as we went into the development of the new latest M series, we were now developing around a boost hub. And we also developing knowing that, like, okay, the second generation M series got a bad rap for stiffness. Much of that unwarranted, I'll have you.
Really?
Like,
okay.
The rims, people consider the rims to be really stiff, but if you actually take one of our old M series rims and do stiffness testing, compressive testing, or frequency testing through them, most of they're actually more compliant or in line with like most of the recent product offerings that have come out of the leading sort of carbon wheels that have come out that are not ENVE. And it's really curious because I think what a lot with the first generation M series is a lot of people were just coming off of aluminum to carbon, and they were taking the same tire pressures that they were running with a 20 millimeter internal rim width or a 23 millimeter internal rim width, and then running it on a 30. And so now all of a sudden I'm running the same tire pressure, but my wheel feels super harsh and stiff, or this, that, and the other. And so there's an element of complaints that I think people that are complaining about stiffness were having, where they just weren't adjusting their tire pressure.
Just a transition period into using the materials.
Yeah, it's just like it's just the new material. And then there's just an element that a carbon rim is inherently much stiffer than an aluminum one. And so it's not necessarily, I mean, it's multiple things. It's transmitting the feeling from the trail, and it's tracking straighter. And so there's just a lot of adjustments. Like when you switch to a carbon rim, you generally have to adjust tire pressure and you have to adjust suspension. And so it's one of those things we don't have control over. We try to educate, but with those in those early days, and I'm speaking specifically about the early days of the first generation M series back like 2014, 15 is, and so with that wheel launch, there was definitely carbon rims out there that were softer and more compliant, but they were also quite a bit weaker. And so it's really like, where's that intersection?
That fine balance, yeah.
Yeah, finding that balance. And so fast forward to the latest generation M series, we said, okay, one of the design parameters for these wheels is we want to make them more compliant. We feel like the compliance on the trail helps our upper bodies feel better, etc. A rim that has some compliance to it can also be more impact resistant. We know that really stiff hookless bead design of our last generation M series was a tire eating machine. So that sharp, narrow hookless bead was sliced right through tires. And so how do we solve that problem? And we, move on to this new generation M series that has more compliance. It's a more comfortable riding wheel, and that comfort is scaled across the line. So the cross-country guy gets a much softer rim than the downhill guy gets, just based on the forces being driven through the bike and the speeds and the terrain. And so I think that's one of the big differences you get with ENVE is you get a ton of options. And yeah, there's other brands out there, but they sort of offer like a cross-country model that's like a 25 or 28 millimeter internal rim width sort of. And then if you want an enduro class wheel, it's going to be a 35 millimeter internal rim width, for example. And if you want a downhill, maybe it's like a 30. But there's like a width and a discipline, a width and a discipline, a width and a discipline. What ENVE offers is on the bookends, we have M5 and M9, very purpose-built race wheels, so cross-country World Cup, downhill World Cup. But in the middle, we have what's our M6 family, which is our trail wheels. But we offer those wheels in that construction in a 30, a 35, and a 40 millimeter width. So there's three options that allow the user to have a wheel that they, so there's three options of that construction. Then you have the 7 Series wheel, which is like maximum pinch flat protection, higher impact durability. Yeah, they weigh a little bit more, but those are available in a 30 and a 35 millimeter as well. So it's not that when you're looking about, okay, what do I like to ride as a rider and where do I like to ride? If you're a guy that really likes running, say, a 2.5 or 2.6 tire, you're not forced, but you don't want like the heavier rim, you have an option. So a lot of brands sort of force the rider into a rim width and a durability level that maybe isn't exactly what they need or want.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
If you're just a trail rider and you're riding uphill all day long, you may be that you like the tire volume, but you don't necessarily you like the high volume of a 2.5 or a 2.6, but you don't need an enduro class rim because you're not that kind of a rider. You're just a guy out riding trails, but you like the tire volume. So that's one of the things with the current M series we really try to do is provide that balanced solution for the type of rider so that you can be a guy that likes high volume, but you also want a lightweight rim. And so you can still get that in a 30 or a 35 or 40 millimeter width. But if you're a full enduro guy, you may like a 2.3 tire, and you might like to run like a stiff casing, DH casing, or double down type casing in a 2.3, and that's your tire and setup of choice. And so there's a 30 millimeter option for that. So it's really about giving people options, and that's sort of the development process and the cycle we go through with like carbon. Is we went from knowing nothing about making carbon mount. Well, I shouldn't say nothing. We went from having preconceived thoughts and notions about what a carbon mountain wheel is to today, where the wheels we make today ride completely different and are nearly unrecognizable compared to the rims we first started making back in 2008.
Yeah. Dude, that was an amazing answer. You technical wizard, you. Sorry.
I get lost. I was like,
that's cool, man. That's super interesting. And for me, from a consumer standpoint, and also from a standpoint of watching downhill, I'm super excited to see how the new M series perform, because there's nothing worse than, hanging out watching downhill with your friends and the last few guys that come down all get a flat. It's just like, what the fuck? Like, all this money's been invested in bikes and all this shit, and then it's like a flat ends it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just
I know what you mean.
It sucks so bad. So I'm excited to see how those perform. So did you use the new M series last year or no?
Yeah. So Intense Factory was on new M's. I mean, honestly, Syndicate was on the new M series the last season they raced with us for the second half. So that was the first year that they went to 29-inch wheels. So that was the year Menard went to 29-inch, and we had 3 different prototypes that were being tested, and it was a rough season. Not necessarily because of like wheel performance, but there was just like a lot of mishaps that happened that season. I think it was World Champs where where a spoke broke and punctured the tape, and then flat tire. It's like, damn it. But no, we understand intimately the pain of a flat tire. But like last year with Intense Factory, I mean, man, those guys loved the product, and we had excellent results. And it's that M7, M9 have what we call that protective rim strip on them, and it's such a cool product. Like, we had this concept, and it was interesting because a couple people in the building had this like idea at different times in different places. And I remember I shared it with our CEO at the time, and she's like, "You need to talk to Brett." And I went and talked to Brett, and he's like, "We had the same concept, the same idea in our head about how we could create like a protective barrier between the carbon and the tire itself."
Right.
You know, because like first generation M series, like I said, that leading edge of the rim, that hookless bead is just narrow and sharp, and so anytime you compress the tire against it, you slice it right through it, knife through butter. And even like a downhill casing tire was not enough. And so that wasn't just an ENVE problem either. That's like all carbon rims that had hookless beads were plagued by this situation. I mean, the reason that inserts exist today in such massive proliferation is because of this problem.
Yeah, like the Hook Norris and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, Huck Norris sort of was the original, and now you've got, there used to be like 4, now there's dozens.
Yeah.
But what, those products all came out because of this problem. What we said is, well, that's fine and dandy, but like what we're selling here is we've spent literally hundreds of hours refining this carbon rim to save. I mean, I've been in meetings where we've debated the merits of 5 to 10 grams in a wheel, right? Like we are laboring over 5 to 10 grams of wheel, and then we're going to sell a wheel that goes out into the market that the consumer then goes out and spends another $100 a wheel to put an insert in, or say like a Procore, something that's not exactly really a cheaper and affordable thing, that's then going to add another 100 grams to the rim just to solve the problem that, existed if you just rode like whatever. If you were riding like an aluminum rim which is a softer material than carbon, for example. So for us, like the whole, pool noodle insert thing wasn't really like a solution that made a lot of sense from a flat prevention. And then what we found is in testing is, and I think this is why the tone of a lot of these tire insert brands has changed, is because they don't do anything for flat protection.
Right.
All of our testing, we have yet to find an insert that will prevent a flat tire as well as our strip does. Because what that strip is it's basically a urethane bumper between the tire and the rim that dissipates the energy when it hits. And so it spreads that energy it dissipates that energy across the material, and as well as it being a soft material, so that when you have the impact, it doesn't drive the carbon rim through the material or the tire. And so, like literally, we had this concept, and from the very first prototype, we've never had a flat tire from pinch flatting in our test lab.
Wow!
And from the very first type, it wasn't just like, I mean, we've iterated different urethanes and whatnot, but from the very first from the very first usable prototype we had, we achieved like this goal. And honestly, even up and through the launch, like a full year of development, even up into the launch, we were just sort of sitting there like fingers crossed that like we were going to continue the track record of performance, and we were sending it out to. It was really the enduro racers that were having a hard time.
Okay.
And like the downhill guys, they run higher tire pressures. They're running full downhill casing tires. Like pinch flats weren't really a huge deal for the downhill crew. But for the enduro racers, absolutely, where they're still like trying to pedal, they're playing with tires or running EXO or double downs and riding less travel through the same terrain that a downhill racer often would. These are the guys that were calling us and being like, dude, we are going through 5 tires a race weekend, and I've now not finished 2 races because I just keep flatting. So now I'm running 40 PSI on my tires, and I hate that, but it's the only way I can not flat. And so, I mean, it was a real problem. And, this technology of like the protective rim strip is very much a technology that solves a problem for a very niche segment of the market, but it is the core market. Like these are the guys probably like you that ride hard, ride often, and ride at speeds that do have those sorts of failures. And we're a very small percentage of the overall mountain bike market, but it is a solution that we felt it was our obligation to deliver to. We sponsor the Enduro World Series team with Orbea. And I mean, those guys are just like, they're just in love with this product. Like,
right.
I mean, it's the thing that's so rad about it is that you can run a lightweight tire if you want, depending on who you are as a rider. You can like literally running a double down tire is almost like a surefire guarantee that you will never have a flat tire. So it's a lightweight option. You don't have to run any inserts in there, which are often just kind of a hassle to install and often don't really meet the promise. And then of anti-pinch flat. But the cool thing with that protective rim strip as well is if you do happen to take a compressive impact that does crack the carbon underneath, you have an isolated air chamber so that you can crack the carbon but not lose any air pressure. So if you're an enduro racer or downhill racer, that's
critical. Yeah.
These guys a few times to where you're like, okay, yeah, I took a hard hit, but I still have air in my tire. And then they get to the bottom and, they don't really even know if they've broken a rim or not. Mm-hmm. And they get to the bottom and inspect the rim. And, if they've broken a rim, they're like, oh, cool, I'll just grab another wheel now. Or because they have that option. But, I mean, if it's a consumer and the same thing happens, like our warranty covers all impact damage. So, I mean, we take care of our customers that way. But it's not this hard to sell, but it's like, for us, it's like a technology that solved a problem. And the problem we identified was a problem that, like, the core mountain bike rider, the guy who's out there charging and having these issues, was complaining about. And we said, okay, what's an ENVE solution to this? And we developed this rim strip. And I mean, the second part of that story is you would think a plastic, like a urethane sort of interface rim strip type thing would be easy to find or source. It wasn't. It took us nearly a year of hunting different manufacturers. We had 3 different manufacturers, 2 in the U.S. and a couple overseas, 2 in the U.S. trying to make this for us, and they couldn't figure out how to do it.
Right.
Because it's different thicknesses, and it's not just like something you can extrude, and then you look at tooling to like make a mold for it, and the molds were going to be like over $100,000 a mold or something crazy like that, and then we need 8 of them for the different rim sizes, and it's just like, we're not going to sell enough things in the world to like pay for this.
So what was the solution? How have you got around it? Are they made in house or no?
Yeah. We said is that we believe in this technology enough that we have to make this product in house, and we have to figure out how to do it. We're not plastics injection molder people, but we are now.
Awesome. That's cool.
We figured out how to do it, and honestly, like in the early days of developing this product, we would make 10 bad ones for every 1 good one.
Really?
As far as that plastic strip. So it was like 9 go in the garbage and 1 goes on the shelf. 9 go in the garbage, 1 go on the shelf. And like today we've vastly improved that. It's not near that anymore. We're pretty good at making them now. So, but it's the things that ENVE's willing to do that others can't. And like that rim strip technology, nobody else can do that. Because to do it, you have to develop a rim as well. And so it's not something you can just, it's just one of those things that it was able to be a real product for ENVE because we do the whole process. Whereas if you're, if you already, you can't just take your existing rim and put a plastic strip over the top of it, then you would never be able to get your tires on it. So
yeah.
Anyway, it's a cool product, and we, its reputation is slowly being heard and felt throughout the mountain bike world. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, dude, it's super interesting because I'm looking forward to trying some. I'm going to give some a shot actually somehow. I'll speak to the guys at Saddleback or something and get some to try. But it's interesting.
Yeah, we can help you out. But cool, yeah, man. Saddleback's great.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. But yeah, I'm like, without sitting down and speaking to you and hearing like the full story, you'd never really understand how much has gone into the back end of that. Do you have anything like video wise you can send that we can put it in the show description for people to watch or anything like that? Because that'd be pretty cool. There's a really good Pinkbike video that Vernon did, right? Like that's really good. So anyone who's not seen that, go watch that because that was really good. And that shows the testing phase as well, right? With dropping the weights on it and stuff.
I think my favorite, the Vernon video was really great, and we talk a lot about some of the same topics that we've talked about here. There's another one that was a Bike Magazine Blueprint video that Ryan Palmer did. That was it was a really good one where we went out and actually did some riding, and there's some slow-mo video of him just smashing this one rock because he really wanted to break a rim. But we were riding inserts, and he did a whole lab. So it was a whole lab test and ride test, and it was called the ENVE Blueprint. But again, like Ryan is a great example. I don't know if you know Ryan, but he's one of the tech editors at Bike Mag. But he was one of the guys early on that sort of had some critical things to say about ENVE wheels in terms of their stiffness. And so he was kind of one of the targets for the new M series. And, you know, we brought him out and he rode the wheels, and like, he continues to ride the original pair that we sent him for testing, and he loves them. I mean, from a compliance standpoint, and then the anti-pinch flat technology is something he just is constantly blown away by. And we continue to impress with that technology. And that's cool. Kind of the thing. Like, we're lucky enough that like our carbon mountain product, that we have a unique feature that other carbon rims don't or can't have, just based on, you know, the IP we've built into it. So there's that. But like the cross country wheels, there's a different technology that's called wide hookless bead, which is actually just it's a full carbon leading edge, but it's quite wide. It's about 2 to 3 times wider than what any other manufacturer is going to have on that leading edge of the rim. And it's the same concept, but acknowledging that the riders using these are cross-country racers and trail riders that aren't riding at the speeds or the consequence, they're not dealing with terrain with the consequence that a downhill and enduro racer would. So you're able to achieve the same high level of pinch flat resistance by just making a wider leading edge. So more space to compress. It's like the difference of having your foot stepped on with a sneaker versus a high heel, right? So sneakers hurt a lot less. The high heel hurts a lot more. So it's that same kind of concept, but incorporated into a rim. So there's 2 technologies that accomplish the same thing. But again, that's the ENVE difference, is like it's scaled into a lightweight model specific for cross-country or trail riders, whereas other manufacturers would say, all the rims just get this one technology because that's the cheapest thing to do. We say, no, there's a right solution for the right type of rider and what they're doing. And the M series is a great example of that because it's so tangible. But that's really what the foundation of ENVE's design philosophy is make the right product for the right rider,
the right discipline.
Follow.
Dude, that's super interesting. And I'll put a link to the Bike Mag blueprint thing in the show description so people can check that out too, because both those videos, the one with Taylor and this one, sounds pretty interesting. So I'll throw those show description, people. Just click the link. You can watch the videos. Do you mind if we just take a 2-minute break? Is that okay?
Not at all.
You sure?
Yeah.
I've got some chickens outside, right? And it's gone dark, and I don't want them to get fucked up. Yeah. Are you sure that's cool?
Yeah.
All right, I'll be like...
good. I'm gonna run and grab a drink real quick.
Yeah, sure. I'll just leave this going, and I'll just catch you back here.
All right.
Cool.
How are the chickens?
All good. Still alive.
I've had the opportunity to babysit or tend a neighbor's chickens a few times, and then every time we went out of town, and eventually a raccoon or a fox got in there and took care of business. So,
yeah. Mate, we've had that. We've had it once. Like, we live like just at the back of the house. There's a river, so we've had that already once. We've had I don't know what it was, like a polecat maybe, and my girlfriend is like super in love with these chickens. So I wanted to just go and make sure. She'd text me a few times then, like, have you done the chickens? Have you done the chickens? I was like, fuck. So yeah, we're safe. We're safe.
Excellent.
All right, man. Just keep going. Sorry, I feel like a carbon rim expert right now.
Oh, good.
Super interesting.
Anything to brainwash you into the right ways to think about carbon.
That should be the line for ENVE. I want to be super mindful of your time anyway, man. And we've been chatting for a while, and I know you're a busy guy. So how much has the actual, what's the word? The scale of what you guys are producing, how much has that ramped up from when you initially started? How many wheels a day, for example, would you do compared to what you're doing now?
Well, 0 to whatever the number. No, I mean, in all honesty, like, I remember a week, probably in 2008, I don't remember. I think we built 10 wheels, so 5 wheel sets. I think we were doing 1 wheel a day, and we were stoked. High-fived each other at the end of the week that we built 5 wheel sets and shipped them. I mean, yeah, there was a point where it was 0, obviously, but it's kind of scaled up from there to where we were kind of like really happy to do like 7 to 10 wheel sets a week. To today where I'm not exactly sure what our production numbers are today, but I mean, I know that the facility we're in, and there have been times when we're able to make, 200 to 300 rims a day.
Right.
So,
wow.
I mean, well, like 200 rims a day is a fairly, that's fairly
Like a normal
pretty,
sort of day, right?
Yeah.
And that keeps you at a point where you're not overstocked in case something drastic changes in the market. You need to adapt quickly. That's like a nice constant flow of products in and out of the facility.
Yeah, we use somewhat of a just-in-time manufacturing process. So an order in, the customer service takes an order, that order gets sent back to manufacturing, and the rim gets built, kind of idea. So we're actually getting a little more sophisticated to the point now where we can, like we know that our most popular mountain bike rims are going to be like our M630. So the M6 30 millimeter wide rim, that's, our most popular wheel in the 29 inch. So we'll build inventory of that rim. We'll build inventory of our most popular road wheels. And now that we have our own hubs, we can even do that a little bit better, where we can actually put product on the shelf. But yeah, that's manufacturing is, again, and that's the thing with ENVE. We're not just, again, a brand. It's like there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds it.
And then, wheels are just part of the business, right? Like we do the other wheels are definitely, account for well over half of what we do, but handlebars, stems, seat posts, components, and accessories are all in play as well. So
yeah. And one thing I was curious of as well, and hopefully we can talk about this a little bit, is how much, there's been a few buyouts and stuff over the last couple of years in particular. How does that affect, your own personal job? How much does it affect company culture? Is it good? Is it bad?
Well, yeah. So we've had one acquisition. So in 2016, we were purchased by Amer Sports, which is the parent company that also owns Mavic. And with any sort of acquisition, there was change. ENVE is lucky in that we're a fully self-reliant brand, and so a lot of the things that would normally affect and touch a company were sort of left alone, given that we are self-sufficient in so many different areas.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's certainly been challenges with that. There was definitely some attempts to integrate and synergize some things, as they would say, that didn't work out just due to the unique nature of ENVE as a brand. Like, ENVE is a brand that requires a really educated salesperson to tell the story. I mean, through this podcast, you've seen, like, I think I've probably told you a bunch of stuff that, like, you maybe didn't know before, because the information is really hard to, like, there's a lot of information. And when you're dealing with such a premium or complex product or a technical product, like, you have to know the details and you have to know the backstories. And if you are a salesperson out in the field trying to sell, say, Mavic's entire product line, as well as ENVE's product line, as well as in some cases skis and boots and watches or something, like, you just don't. The ENVE as a brand doesn't get all the attention that it requires to really educate and sell somebody the product. And that's a challenge, right? It's a unique problem with a really technical premium product like ENVE. And so all in all, the acquisition, being owned by Amer Sports, has been great. And the future,
it's all good.
The future's all good, I think.
Yeah. Couple of questions I'm just curious about as well before we do a couple of listener questions and get you out of here. What do you think is the next thing to happen in mountain biking? Like, is there something tech on the horizon you can see, like, really taking off? Or because it seems like over the last few years we've been hit with a couple of these, like 29ers, for example, in the downhill market. So is there anything you can see happening which is going to change the game?
Well, I think we're seeing it in real time. I mean, I think just as much as technology, we're going to continue to see more new bike brands that are built around, like, this direct to consumer model. So we're going to be seeing just more more of that. I think what is really highlighted to me is how geometries and this like geometries are really getting super refined. And we're finally to the point where we're making just like phenomenal bikes. And, you know, it's not just a couple brands doing it anymore. Like you now today have dozens of options of bikes that all have more or less the same geometry and good suspension. And I see a need, and I think air pressure, and there's going to be a continued development in terms of like sort of smart technologies or smart features on bikes that aren't so much gimmicky, but things that are really, people are going to start digging into things that make your life easier. Things that people don't necessarily know they need, and they're going to laugh at and mock at first until they try it, and then they're going to be addicted to them.
Like wireless, for example. You know, we've seen the the Access come out recently.
Like a wireless copper post is totally something that's been on on my mind for quite a few years, and kind of waiting to see who's going to do it best and first, and or not first but best. But yeah, things like that, like what are these annoying things that people just take as standard, but that actually maybe there's another solution for them. Maybe running cables was a big annoyance that's going to go away completely. So I think we're going to see more sensors, system integration type stuff. And I mean, it's really the only way you can go if you're a brand like Specialized, for example, or Trek. I mean, develop more and more of those technologies. Things are, people used to give Cannondale a really hard time back in the day for having all these proprietary parts. But I mean, fast forward to today, I mean, it's only sort of becoming more and more like that. There's sort of this constant battle between like standards and like standardization, and then
the lefty's always been a strange one though, hasn't it? That's always been like a real strange one for me. It just never really got my head around that, but they stuck with it. Like they kept going.
They sure did. My prime years of cross country racing were all done on a Cannondale with a lefty. I did five or six seasons of lefty riding, so I saw a lot of that. But yeah, I don't know. But for ENVE, like I really feel like there's a lot to be learned still, and a lot to be understood around like tire pressures and tire and wheel setups. I think that way. I actually think there's a big trend right now from hub manufacturers to like have super duper high engagement.
Yeah. I've seen something just before actually on Pinkbike. Was it? I can't remember which hub it was.
Yeah, the new Hydra, the new i9.
Yeah, with like 690 contact points, something like that.
Yeah, it's super clever hub. We're actually be offering our wheel sets with that hub set as well. Okay. Because there are consumers that are really asking for a high engagement option, and again, Industry 9's a US made hub, so it really fits well with our brand. Like two US brands collaborating to have a really cool wheel set. But I think we're going to see some rollback on what the right amount of engagement is, just based on feedback I've heard from the field and ride testing a lot of that stuff myself. Like there's certain terrain that is benefited by super high engagement, and then there's other types of riding where it sort of can be a sort of not necessarily a hindrance, but it doesn't seem to be super value added.
Yeah, it's just not necessary.
Yeah, I can see from an attempt to like reduce drag and lower the weight of a hub, a rollback in sort of super high engagement. It could be something coming down the pipeline. Because I don't think it's for everybody necessarily. I think the tire inserts thing's super interesting. I'm curious to see where that's going to go.
Yeah, me too, for sure.
We've seen all the results we do in the lab testing. We buy those inserts, we ride test them, and I'm really curious to see where that whole thing goes. And I don't know what your thoughts or opinions are on them, but like after riding a bunch of them and after everything from we did a test where we were trying to we were creating a bunch of different combinations of inserts with different tires on different rims. And sort of my takeaway at the end of all of it was that if I want like ultimate flat protection and like that dampened ride feel, I would just as soon ride a downhill tire on like our lightweight 6 series rim. Because the weight was less and I got that really like dampened ride feel.
So is that that's the dream combo right there for you?
I wouldn't say it's the dream combo.
Okay.
I just, if I was like racing enduro and I was going to be on a course where I was like really concerned and nervous about damaging a tire or flattening a tire, I would be, but I also wanted to have something that I could pedal all day, and it was still not, they was sort of finding that best balance of weight to flat protection. I would much rather run a downhill tire on our M7 or M6 wheel, as opposed to like either one of those rims with an insert in it with a lighter like EXO tire. I use Maxxis because that's kind of like what all of our testing and experience is on recently.
Okay.
And most people are fluent in Maxxis.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting to me as well. I mean, I think there's, I think people just sort of overlook that as even an option, right? And like when you actually sit down and put it on a spreadsheet and do the math, you're like, so I can put this really challenging to install insert inside of my wheel with its EXO or double down casing tire, and now I'm 200 grams heavier than if I was just to run a downhill casing tire. Yeah. And then I talked to a fair amount of some of the tire manufacturers as well, and they're sort of the same opinion, which is interesting. But yeah, inserts, it's a whole thing.
For sure.
I see their place in the world, but yeah.
And it's interesting having someone like yourself be able to really break down the advantages of the whole thing. You know, I think it'll be a real asset to people that are looking at buying a set of carbon wheels, to be honest. I really do.
Well, here's another interesting thing. In our we were down in Vegas at doing some ride testing this winter in this test, and the only rims we broke were rims that had inserts in them.
That did break.
Oh, right. We were only able to break rims that had inserts in them. And then I'm not saying it's a super scientific. I'm not making a claim that this is like some scientific discovery that's backed in a lot of empirical data, but it's curious because you could see if you're a consumer and you're like, I just bought these carbon wheels, I'm going to spend some extra money on some inserts so that I can protect my investment. And then you go out and you break your rim after, in our experience, what I would say were not extreme hits, but would have otherwise survived without the inserts in our experience. I mean, and continue to do so. We sort of came back to the drawing board and like, what is it that adding the insert to the wheel is doing that's causing it to fracture in a way that we've never seen them do before? And it really just comes down to this fact that where before you had all your air volume and your tire volume to travel through, now you are compressing on this rim strip or this insert that's sitting an inch or 2 inches or so proud of the tire bed. So you're starting to compress the rim a lot sooner in the diameter than you would without. We believe it was just adding, additional forces and load into the carbon structure itself that then caused it to break. And they were breaking in a way that was unique, a unique fracture compared to what we'd see just under normal riding conditions if somebody were to break a rim. So that's more of just like an interesting, it's an interesting result because it's the exact opposite of what you would hope to be doing by putting that product in a wheel.
Okay.
And again, it wasn't and it hasn't been since then. We've tested it in the lab as well. And it's not that it's something exclusive to ENVE. We're seeing it with other brand carbon wheels as well, where on our impact fixture, it will take whatever the height impact is, and then you put an insert in it and the impact value goes down by 2 or 3 inches.
Right.
And you're like, well,
and that's quite substantial because how high does it? Yeah, it doesn't go that much higher.
No. I mean, it's all subjective to our testing, but like our internal tests with our weights and everything, a cross country wheel has to take a 12-inch impact, and then 6s do 14, 7s do 16, and then the downhill wheel does actually over 20 now, 20 inches. So those are like the requirements for it to pass, and that downhill wheel maxes out the height of our machine. But like I said earlier, like our original downhill wheel, the goal was 12 inches, and now the cross country wheel does 12 inches. So we've made massive improvements there, but yeah, like when we're those increments are very, very meaningful and make
quite
big
substantial.
differences in the real world. Yeah, compared to like what they are in the lab. So anyway, it's a kind of neither here nor there, but it's just interesting, like some of the stuff that's out there that you see all the time with composites is like where you have sort of one expected desired result, and then what you actually get is something completely different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Do a couple of listener questions, if that's all right. We got a few come in, if that's cool. First one I'm going to hit you with is from me. I want to know you. End of the year, 2019. Who are the top 3 men's and women's downhill?
Oh man. Well, I'm really given our recent investment with the Commensal team, I'd like to place all.
It's a Commensal sweep.
Yeah, I don't want to. I'd like to promote a clean sweep of the podium. No, we. Yeah, no, it'd be great to see Omri have a great season, and oh man, his name's your boy there in the UK that's on Scott bikes now. Brendan, yes.
Yeah, I noticed you guys had just got Brendan. That dude, Brendan is so deserving a win.
Yes, I would love to see Brendan have a great season as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean we're ready for a big World Cup season. So, really like to see those boys have a good season. And like you said, Brendan's awesome guy, super nice, deserving of a win. So
yeah. I think it's going to be an interesting season again, man. Like everyone's coming in pretty much fit and healthy, and it should be good. I've got a couple of podcasts coming up actually where we're going to like get into it and break down the teams and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we'll be doing that pretty soon. We got those coming out in the next sort of couple of months. We got some stuff happening. Should be fun.
Awesome.
All right, listener questions. First one, our friend, the Aberdare MTB. Is there a weight limit on ENVE wheels?
No, sir.
Awesome. Okay.
There's no weight limit. We are, but we do. I'm assuming if you're curious and caring about weight, you're also potentially, I don't know, like the one area where we get that question a lot is around our lightest weight wheel, like our M525, the cross country wheel. We generally say that, again, we've designed this wheel specifically for World Cup cross country racers, and we sort of assume those guys are going to be in the 150, 160 pound sort of range. If you're a guy that's a bigger guy, and you're not truly like putting a number plate on every weekend and racing, you're probably better off on one of our M6 series wheels because it's going to be a stiffer, more purpose-built wheel for a larger rider like that. But we don't put weight limits on product.
Okay. Awesome. Next one. Oh, you kind of answered it, but let's go for it anyway. On Instagram at Let's Get High 420. Which is better, summer dust bowls or winter powder pillows?
I like that guy's.
That's a good handle.
Sounds like that guy's into bowls. Oh man, dust bowls over powder bowls, man. I mean, dust isn't always rad in mountain biking, but you know, a nice powder day in the snow is good as it gets. So I'll take tacky dirt over dust any day.
I'm going to have my first skiing experience pretty soon. I've never been, but I'm heading out to Morzine in a couple of weeks. Well, maybe a month for a meeting.
Nice.
I'm excited, dude. I've never done it before, so I'm slightly apprehensive, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it too.
It's easy. You just got edges. You just lean and then turn. It's fine.
Yeah. I used to play ice hockey, so I'm going to go for skiing rather than snowboarding. I think it's going to transfer a little bit easier, but yeah, never done it. Sorry.
Yeah. I approve of that message.
At Casual MTB UK on Instagram, did you ever consider getting the manufacturing done in the Far East?
Oh yeah. There was definitely a time in 2009. We were sort of talking to industry veterans, if that's what we could call them, and they basically all told us like the only way you're going to survive and compete in this market is if you go to Asia or overseas, wherever, if you go somewhere where you can have cheap labor and somebody with carbon expertise to make your wheels. And It's the only way, and the only way you're going to survive is if you become an OEM brand. And we said, that doesn't really feel like what we're all about. Like, we started this company because we love to ride, and the engineers that came here had come to ENVE and rolled the dice to be part of this brand because they liked making stuff, and they'd seen their jobs turning more and more into just designers where they design a product and then just ship off a packet to the East to have it made. And it was just not what we were about. And we really believed in making the product ourselves and owning the process. And so, yeah, sure, the temptation was always there, and there was people telling us we had to do it, but that was sort of that was the gamble, right? Like in any business or new project, there's sort of like this point where there's a gamble about, a decision's made that either makes or breaks the company. And that was ours. It was our decision to commit to in-house manufacturing, and it was the right decision. And we are now, very expert in carbon manufacturing, and you're seeing it more and more every day. More and more brands manufacturing locally wherever they're located, right? And again, it's not about U.S. manufacturing specifically. It's about manufacturing where you are, like manufacturing locally, where you have oversight and control over the whole process. And then the other piece of that is just your intellectual property. Like, we were given no guarantees if we went to Asia or anywhere else that our IP would be protected. And we felt very strongly that we have something special in terms of our manufacturing processes. And so we decided to protect that technology and keep our manufacturing here in Utah. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Again, something that does get overlooked is if you do go to one of these Far East factories, often your design will get given to someone else and blah, 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 etc. So yeah, that's important. Yep. Fair point.
To Alibaba will show you what that's all about.
Yeah. Last one is actually the Aberdare MTB again. And I'm not sure why he's asking this, so I'm interested. Do you use graphene in the construction of ENVE rims?
No, we do not use graphene in the construction of ENVE rims. It's kind of a hot tagline product right now that definitely serves some purpose, but we have not seen. We've done some testing and played around with it a little bit, but we haven't been able to find a real justification to use that product in our. It's used in a lot of it's being used a lot in tire products right now, in rubber compounds, but yeah, it's an interesting product, but haven't really found a justification to put it in any of ours yet. So
cool. All right, man. Well, it's been a blast.
It has been
hanging out, chatting about carbon, dude. It's been interesting for me as well. Like, honestly, like I had no idea. I had usually when recording these, you have a sort of rough idea what you want to talk about and stuff, but you knocked it out of the park, man. It's been really interesting to find out more about ENVE and yourself, and yeah, it's exactly what we enjoy doing with this thing. So thank you. Massive thank you for taking the time out.
Well, thanks for staying up a little later, and
that's all good, man. It's only early here. Is there anything you guys, you want to promote? Is there anything coming up which you want to mention? Where can people find out more about you or ENVE and all that sort of stuff?
No, I mean, I think I've done enough promotion and telling the story about the brand, but we're, cool thing with ENVE is we have a great customer service team. You call us, we have people that answer the phone and answer your emails. And so if you have any questions, we're available. Visit enve.com for more information. And thanks for your support.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Have a good
Cheers.
one. Be safe. Right. You wait there. And there you have it, friends. Episode 68 is in the bag. Appreciate you guys listening and taking the time out, sharing your ears with us. And hopefully you guys have learned something too. That was, for me, again, super interesting episode. I didn't know too much about carbon or really ENVE coming into this. Decided to leave it quite a blank canvas as to what we actually spoke about. There was no real direction with that. So that was super cool just to see how it came out. And again, if you have enjoyed listening, please head over to iTunes, leave a review. Share this episode with your friends, anyone you think might enjoy it. Just let them know. And if you have enjoyed listening, please let the guys at ENVE know that you enjoyed it too. That always goes a long way. These guys see value in the podcast, which is cool. And don't forget to follow us too. It's at The Hook It Podcast on everything. Instagram, Facebook. We have a closed Facebook group too. Just search The Hook It Podcast listeners and it comes right up. That is about it, everyone. We will be back shortly, actually, in a week or so with a slopestyle superstar. I'll leave you with that teaser. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy it. Peace out.